How's it going so far? There's still a little bit more to show you in today's Nintendo Direct.
All right.
So we hope you'll stick with us.
I'm gonna stick with you. I've made it this far. Might as well. Aonuma? It's gotta be Breath of the Wild 2 news.
I'm A.G. Aonuma,
It's gotta be.
producer of the Legend of Zelda series. I'm sure a lot of you saw me and thought there might be news about the sequel to the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild game.
Oh, is there not?
Unfortunately, we don't have anything to share.
Oh, come on.
We apologize. Development is proceeding smoothly, and we should be able to bring you some new information this year.
As long as the game's not canceled, we're gonna get something eventually. That's all I care about. I can wait. I've got patience.
While you're all waiting, however, this Legend of Zelda game will be coming to Nintendo Switch.
Okay.
Please take a look.
What's this game? Fuck you. No fucking way. There's no way they did it. Oh my god. It looks so good. Oh my god. Oh, the sand shit. Oh my. Is that the second time you fight him? It's kind of a spoiler, but whatever. Oh, Gary, his freaking tongue. Zelda. Yes! Oh my god. I've never been happier in my life. Anyone who has been around my channel for longer than 30 seconds already knows that Skyward Sword is my favorite game of all time. Zelda has been my favorite series since I was a kid playing Ocarina of Time on the N64, and that love has never died. Playing through Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Phantom Hourglass, Spirit Tracks, Minish Cap, A Link to the Past, Link's Awakening throughout my childhood, I have never once been disappointed by a Zelda game. I even enjoyed Link's crossbow training, so that proves my bias to Zelda right there. I've played every single mainline Zelda game out there and love them all so dearly. The only series that has ever even gotten close to Zelda in terms of how much I love it is Pokemon, but even that's a tier below. So what makes me love Zelda games more than anything? It's the story, world design, towns that feel lively, characters with great personalities and development, open areas to explore, secrets to uncover, side quests to encourage exploration, gameplay and battle mechanics, bosses and engaging villains, and oh yeah, the freaking music! All of that together plus more is what drew me to these games and continues to make me excited for every game in the series. But the one game in the series that does all of that better in my opinion is Skyward Sword. This game is perfect and I've been clamoring for a remake or a port of it for a few years now. You can go pretty far back on my channel and see that I've been asking for this basically since the start of my reviews. Did I ever think it would actually happen? I had confidence, but I also had my doubts. The game was never widely seen as one of the best in the series, and many people in fact claim it's one of the worst. Those people are stupid and have no fucking taste, but everyone is allowed to have their wrong opinions. As every other 3D Zelda game was getting a remake on the 3DS or Wii U, it definitely made perfect sense to keep with the trend and remake Skyward Sword too. It obviously wasn't going to be for the Wii U because it's basically the same system as the Wii, plus you can already play it on the Wii U, and the game was also only released 1 year before the Wii U, so it was far too new at that point. Also, I don't want my favorite game's remake trapped on a dead console. Sorry, you two. The Switch made perfect sense for a Skyward Sword remake, with the Joy-Cons allowing to continue the motion controls gimmick of the game, while also being able to maybe add real controller options. Rumors started to float around, and people began to speculate about when the supposed remake would come out. And then a Skyward Sword HD placeholder was found on Amazon in late 2020, really ramping up the belief that this remaster was happening. After Super Mario 3D All-Stars for Mario's 35th anniversary, it made sense for Zelda to do something similar for its 35-year anniversary. And what better way than to remake the game that came out for its 25-year anniversary 10 years ago. That was my personal belief. Either it was happening in 2021 or probably not at all, at least not for a long time. And then that Nintendo Direct happened in February of 2021, which you all saw my reaction to at the beginning of this video. Finally, our dreams have been realized and we are getting a remake this year. I literally had a countdown on my phone, counting down the days until this game released because I was so excited for it, but I am so happy to say the day has finally come. I feel like my whole channel has been building up to this very moment, and I can't believe I'm finally going to say it. Today, we're taking a look at Skyward Sword HD. Skyward Sword HD was released on July 16, 2021, and I subsequently blew the biggest load of my life. This remaster is very similar to the remasters of Wind Waker in HD, where the graphics have been improved and there are a variety of quality of life improvements. This isn't just the same game being slightly upgraded and still sold for full price, even though there's a version that's only $20 on the Wii U eShop. Okay, that's exactly what this is. People have been complaining since this game's reveal about it being too expensive and not having enough new content or changes to warrant the $60 price tag, especially because it seemed like both Wind Waker HD and Twilight Princess HD had more changes, but they were still only $50. And I will concede that maybe it should have been $50 just like those two, but at the end of the day, this is Nintendo we're talking about. The same company that sold Tropical Freeze on the Switch for $60, even though the original on the Wii U was $50, and then was also marked down to $20. See, Nintendo doesn't really give a shit what you think. Most Nintendo officially published Switch games retail for $60, so nobody should be surprised by this pricing. My logic is, if you already own a $300 system and likely other games you've already bought for $60, then that extra $10 really isn't that big of a deal. As long as the game is worth the price and you feel like you got your money's worth, that's all that matters. That's all personal opinion though, because my price tag is probably a bit higher than most people's for this game. Write any amount on here and I will buy it. I guess we should talk about what changes this game did make, because some of them are very important and make the game a lot less annoying. First off, maybe my biggest issue with the original was how every single time you picked up an item, the item description box would pop up. Sure, this would go away if you collected one while you're playing, but if you ever turned the game off and started it back up again, the box would show up again as if it was the first time you were collecting the item. I genuinely have no idea why Nintendo ever thought this was a good idea. It's just straight up annoying and entirely pointless. There were so many times my first time playing this game that I thought I was obtaining a new collectible because the animation started, but nope, just another fucking amber relic. Now, was this really that big of a deal? No, I'm just playing it up for comedic effect, but it definitely was unnecessary. Fortunately, the HD version took away all of those extra text boxes and now only shows up the very first time you pick up a collectible. This is much appreciated because it makes the game smoother and doesn't just stop you from doing what you want because you picked up an item. It's a very tiny detail that really doesn't change the overall gameplay, but it's one of those quality of life improvements that I will never complain about. There are a bunch of quality of life changes, like being able to skip the sword tutorial at the beginning of the game if you don't need it. I always think tutorials should be optional, so this is a great change, even though I still did it because I need to do everything in this game. They also gave you the ability to skip cutscenes without first needing to beat the game, which I personally have mixed feelings about. I don't mind them adding the option because it's nice to have, but that's only for a second playthrough. Why would you be skipping the cutscenes on a game like this with a strong story where the cutscenes are super important? The same people who want to skip the cutscenes are probably the ones who complain that they don't know what's going on and say, why didn't the game explain this to me, even though they skipped right through the dialogue that told them. This game never teaches me anything. I mean, who the hell even is that guy? Another change they made was cutting back on Fi's help messages, which I think is something we can all appreciate. Fi always made little comments that were unnecessary and just popped up to annoy you. Like seriously, who gives a damn what the percentage is for all these things in the game? We all know it's 100% anyways, otherwise we wouldn't be able to beat the game. People also always make jokes about her telling you that your battery life is low, but that's honestly a good part of the game. Sure, it kinda takes the immersion out of the game, but it's really not that big of a deal like some people like to act it is. Oh no, a character in the game broke the fourth wall. It's not like hundreds of games out there do that or anything. There are two more major changes in the game which are both great additions, but one of them is stuck behind a stupid fucking amiibo which makes no sense. This fast travel function is so good, and so many people's biggest issue with this game is the constant backtracking and its linearity. So why on earth would you lock one of the best features of this whole game behind a $25 amiibo that's going to be bought by scalpers and eventually be $100? I'm sure Nintendo knew people were going to buy this amiibo, so they thought why not give it a very good function in the game, which is entirely fair. But this amiibo saves so much time in the game that it's almost broken. You can fast travel from anywhere on the surface to the sky, then when you're back on the land in Skyloft, you can instantly travel back to where you were on the surface. This saves so much dang time over flying back and forth and needing to find a bird statue to return to and from the sky, but you only get this luxury if you pay that extra $25. I don't think a quality of life feature this big should require you to buy an amiibo, and instead it should have been an item that you could unlock. Speedrunners for this game are going to need to use this amiibo or they're going to have no chance. The way you know I truly feel this strongly is because when have you ever heard me criticize Skyward Sword? Never! It was a great idea to add it into the game, but dumb and greedy to lock it behind an amiibo. I don't want to get too negative talking about my favorite game of all time, so let's switch over to the last major change which I am really happy about. The ability to use a real controller and not this dildo. Because the original was on the Wii, it used this little thing called As bad as some people want to make the motion controls seem, they actually worked very well, and I rarely ever had any problems with them, except for the boss keys where I sometimes broke my wrist trying to turn it in the right direction. The Wii Motion Plus was required for the game and made every movement much more accurate than without it. Now that it's 10 years later, motion controls have gotten even more accurate, so with the Joy-Cons, it works better than ever. If you want a true experience that's more reminiscent of the original, this is definitely the gameplay style to go with, especially since so many enemies' weaknesses in this game revolve around attacking in certain directions to take full advantage of motion controls. But if you don't want to look like a lunatic swinging your arms alone in your room, you're in luck! The remake allows you to use a Pro Controller, and instead you swing the sword in the direction that you move the right stick. I wasn't sure how well this would work or how well I'd be able to adjust after swinging the Wii Remote for so many years, but it actually works better than I thought. Sometimes it is a little non-responsive, but it's not that bad. It definitely does take a bit to get used to since it's so much different than any other Zelda game out there, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty smooth. It's much more comfortable to hold a real controller in your hand, and I am so glad they added this option. They even took into account the new controls with how there's a free camera in the game now. With Joy-Cons, you just use the right stick to turn the camera, but you obviously can't do that with a controller since that swings the sword. So instead, they let you still use the right stick to move the camera as long as you were holding down the L button. A very simple and good change since you pretty much always need a free camera in Zelda games now. It probably doesn't seem like a big deal to anyone, but just go back and play Mario 64 and compare it to Mario Odyssey. It's a night and day difference. Now that I've talked about the majority of the changes that they've made to this game, I can finally talk about the story and the overall game as a whole. Or I could not and then just let you play the game and experience it for yourself, which is exactly what I'm gonna do. One of the first reviews I made on this channel was about Skyward Sword back in 2018. Sure, that review isn't one of my best since it was one of my first, but it does go over the entire story of the game and my feelings about it. Here's the short and sweet version. This game is fucking perfect. Oh my god, the best characters in any Zelda game out there. Groose, there's never been a better Zelda character, and don't even try to change my mind. Going from a cocky bully to depressed weakling who doesn't think he's worth anything to a strong, brave sidekick who helps Link save the world. Amazing character arc for someone who mostly starts as just a comic relief character. Plus we have the best Link-Zelda relationship in the whole series, which I always praise this game for. They're more than just a hero and princess, but lifelong friends who care and have feelings for each other. People like to say that Link and Zelda and Breath of the Wild have a romance story, but this is the real romance story of the Zelda franchise. The story as a whole is incredibly engaging with deep lore that began the entire Zelda timeline. That timeline shouldn't even exist in the first place, but Skyward Sword is still the start of everything in the series, and no one can deny that. I could go deeper into how and why this game is so important, especially to the cycle of Link, Zelda, and Ganon fighting for all eternity, but that would just be a major spoiler, so I'm gonna let you play the game and find out for yourself. Or just Google it, I can't stop you. The side quests are some of the best in the series, and I love exploring the sky and every little island. People say it's empty, but there is so much to do and see, just like the Great Sea in Wind Waker. There's mini games, items, the lumpy pumpkin, it's just so good. Every area on the surface is diverse and has some of the most unique designs in the series. Just look at Lanayru Desert with the time shift stones. That right there is one of the coolest and best ideas anyone has ever come up with. Being able to basically design the same area twice but with completely different objects and mechanics adds so much more possibilities for puzzles and exploration. Elven Volcano has one of the more unique parts of any Zelda game too, where you lose all of your items and have a Metal Gear-esque stealth mission. And then Farron Woods has Kikwis. I've only known you for 5 seconds, but I will defend you with my life. Sure, there is a lot of backtracking to these same 3 locations, but each time you return you go to somewhere new and it's never the same. First you go to Farron Woods, but then you go to Lake Floria. Same with the Lanayru Desert, where you go to the Sand Sea and the Sand Ship, which is also just an amazing dungeon. That's another thing. The dungeons in this game are the best in the series. The Sand Ship, Fire Sanctuary, Lanayru Mining Facility, Sky Keep, and the best of all, Ancient Cistern. The item each dungeon gives you allows for some of the best puzzles in all of Zelda, plus some of the best bosses as well. There's only one boss that everyone can agree is terrible. The Imprison can go f*** itself, and I don't feel bad for saying that. It was cool the first time, second was nice to see that the seal was getting weaker, third was overkill and just annoying. But to make up for that, we have Girahim, Levias, and Bilosite, the final boss who I still won't spoil, and then freaking Kalaktos. Oh my lord, is this a good boss fight, and it feels so satisfying to cut his arms and legs off. Out of context, that would sound really bad. And then the music in this game is simply sublime. One of the best soundtracks from any game, and one of my favorite main themes in any game too. Ballad of the Goddess couldn't be more perfect, and it's amazing what they were able to do simply by just putting Zelda's lullaby in reverse. That's not even a joke. That's literally how they wrote this song, and it even makes perfect sense. Zelda's lullaby obviously puts Zelda to sleep, but in this game, Link tries to wake Zelda up, so putting the lullaby in reverse is a genius idea. That short and sweet version of my opinions went on a little bit longer than I'd hoped, but I just love talking about Skyward Sword. Just know that I love this game to death, and the remake is no different. They streamlined the game with great quality of life changes, and it looks even more beautiful than it did before. The graphics were never bad originally, but now in full HD and 60 frames per second, it looks better than ever. I highly recommend this game to anyone, especially if you've never played the original. You will not regret it and will have a wonderful time. This was one of the happiest days of my life, and now that I'm holding this game in my hand, I really don't know what I'm going to start asking for in all of my videos. I guess I'll just rattle off a few, and hey, maybe one of these will actually stick. Banjo 3E, Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door Remastered, Final Fantasy VII Remake re-released for the PlayStation 6, Glover HD, Fire Emblem 4 Houses, Shadow the Hedgehog 2, Halo Google, New Mario Teaches Typing U Deluxe. Nah, I gotta keep my expectations realistic, so I guess for the next 3 years or so, you're gonna have to listen to me asking for Skyward Sword HD 2 The Squeakquel.